Hi, Kieran.
Hello, you're right.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. So I just want to get straight into the nitty gritty of this because it's a really fascinating subject. So you are a paranormal researcher.
Yep.
What does that mean?
I think it means a lot of things to different people.
Yeah.
So for me, it means that I don't just get bogged down in the paranormal being ghosts. For me, the paranormal is anything outside of the normal. So that could be UFOs.
Yeah.
It can stretch to cryptozoology. So there's a lot of things that for me are paranormal. And actually, if we get time, I can talk about how I believe that they're actually all linked as well.
Yeah.
They're not separate entities. I think they're all part of the same kind of bigger picture.
Wow.
So for me, it was, growing up in a slightly haunted house was a big thing. So when I was a child, things would move, things would bang. My mom would shout at this unknown entity, which as a child is weird because she should be shouting at me. But she was shouting at this, what I now know to be her nan, who would regularly move things around the house and help with children as well. She would tuck us in bed and turn our mobiles on and stuff on a night time. So growing up in this environment was quite strange. And then as I got older, these kind of interests, they fall by the wayside. You kind of, you get a job, you get a girlfriend, you start playing sports and you forget about this. So I did kind of have an interest, but it just fell to the back of my mind. And then one day, coming back from rugby training, we were training over in Bromsgrove, so we had to travel back to Halsowen. So it was a fair way. And we travelled through a place called Romsley. And when you're at the top of Romsley, you can see for miles. You can see Birmingham. It's a great view. As we kind of got to the top, my brother and I noticed this big bright light out of the corner of our eye. Now this is normally it parallels the M5, this road, but there comes a point where you're no longer that close to the M5, so you're aware of the noise, the lights from the M5. But at this point, it wasn't the M5. So as we got higher and higher up the hill, this light kind of came from behind the tree line, and it was a craft. And it was about 1,000 feet away and 1,000 feet up. And it was about the size of half a rugby pitch, this thing. So it was a good size. At this point, it's just us. So I've kind of stopped my car. This is quite a busy road, not too busy, but quite busy. But one thing to note is there were no other cars at the time. So my brother and I are sat watching this thing. If I'd have carried on at 30 miles an hour, I'd have left it behind. That's how slow this thing was going. But interestingly, there wasn't a noise. You can hear a plane at like 20,000 feet.
Absolutely.
You couldn't hear a thing from this craft. Again, I've turned my engine off. There's no noise. It is just silent. And then out of nowhere, my brother and I just start crying, right? So we've just been to rugby training, smashing each other into the ground. And now we're just sat there in tears, and we don't know why. My brother's not into this, by the way. He's not into any paranormal stuff. And so it was really good that he was there. Yeah. So eventually this thing kind of got behind the next tree line and we carried on home. It was about another 5-6 minutes till we got home. So we've walked in still visibly shaken. My mum's, what's happened? What's going on? So we tell her what's happened. And I truly believe that if my brother wasn't there to back me up, they would have just gone, oh yeah, whatever. Like, this is your thing. But because he was there, it was great. And we never spoke of it. So we went to bed that night. We shared a room. We didn't speak of it for about 2 weeks. But what I did is I went away and started looking, did anyone else see this thing, right? It would have gone over a few pubs. It would have gone over farmlands. Someone must have seen this. And I couldn't get anywhere near it. The only thing I could see was something called the Dudley Dorito, which people had seen about 10 years before over Merry Hill, over the shopping centre. But there was nothing from the night we'd seen it. So I contacted a local, what I thought was local, but it turned out to be an American guy called Antonio Paris. And then he put me in touch with his UK-based investigator, who was a guy called Lawrence McNeil up in Scotland. And he started to interview me and take notes and pictures, and then my brother got involved. He got some notes and pictures from him. And then the one night he called me on Skype and he said, I can't stay long, I'm going out. I'm going out. And I said, okay, that's fine, so am I. He's in Scotland. And so anyway, he would do a quick interview, and then I said, where are you going? Oh, my sister is married to someone from Wolverhampton, and he's got me tickets to go and watch this talk on 9/11, right? And I was like, I'm going to a talk on 9/11. And it turned out that we were both going to what's known as BUFOG, which is Birmingham UFO Group.
Yeah.
We were both going to watch the same talks. Like an hour after that, we were stood at the bar, like talking to each other.
Wow.
which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then going to BUFOG then led me to tell the chairman of BUFOG, who's now a friend of mine, Dave Hodrian, about my experience. And then he said, okay, well, would you like to come and do a talk here? And I said, I don't really have much to talk about. He said, well, you're into ghosts and stuff, aren't you? I said, kind of. So I did. I went and did a talk about ghosts. And then someone said, have you got a book to sell? And I was like, no. Should I? I said, yeah, you should have a book. And I was like, okay. So I went and wrote a book. And then it was like, you coming to do another talk? Don't have another talk. Well, you should do. So I went and did another talk. And then, where's your other book? Don't have another book. You should write one. Okay. And then it kind of just grew organically. And that's kind of how I got to become like a talker and an author, really through this kind of series of synchronicities that I find has continued throughout my life, and I believe is part of everybody's life.
Yes.
So that's kind of how the books came about, all really from a UFO sighting, really.
Can I go back to that UFO sighting? Yeah. Just so how did you feel when you saw this?
Petrified.
What?
We had phones, and the one thing that we did say to each other when we got back was, why didn't we take a picture? Or why didn't we take it? And it never crossed our minds, because you think this, right? You always think, oh, whatever, like you had a phone, you can take a picture. It never crossed our minds to get the phone out and take a picture of this thing, which I regret, obviously. But I can't regret something I wasn't aware of at the time. So it's not like I said, oh, I can't be bothered to take my phone out. I just genuinely didn't cross my mind. It scared us to death. And I remember asking my brother, what time is it? And my brother knew enough about it to say, don't worry, there's no missing time. Because we were worried that something would have happened. But no, it got behind. When it got behind the tree line, we were crying. It got back behind the tree line. We started up the car, drove away, and then for 2 weeks didn't really.
You just reminded me of The Flight of the Navigator, that film. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it.
Have you not seen that film?
That was a great film.
Great film.
Yeah, it is. It is a great film. Could you see anything?
So the craft
what did it look like?
Triangular.
Yeah.
And it had 2 lights at the back corners, nothing in the middle or at the front, which was the light in the middle is synonymous with a lot of these kind of triangular craft sightings, whereas they were just at the back. It looked like a jet black craft. It's difficult to say the height because of the angle that we were looking at. I originally thought it was rectangular, and then once our eyes adjusted, because this was about 9 o'clock, right? So it was just getting dark. So once our eyes adjusted, you could see the outline against the sky, and that's the only way we could tell the shape of this thing. But it was 2 like white lights on the back corners, and that was the all. And it looked like a solid craft. It's not like on a car where you have different panels that make up a car. This just looked like one big solid piece of metal.
Do you think that, the fact that you said that you felt really emotional, do you think because you were quite close to this craft that it emanated some kind of energy that made you feel that way? I wouldn't
doubt that. I've got no proof for that, but I again, so people always say, oh, it's a UFO, so you believe in aliens, right? The definition of a UFO is an unidentified flying object. I've never said it. There were little green or grey men in there. Yeah. This could have been something army or something, military that we're not aware of. And they always say that military craft and military technology is always 50 years advanced. What we see now, they had like 50 years ago. I'd probably go longer than that. But by its very definition, it was a UFO. Didn't know what it was. And it didn't fit any kind of craft that we looked at. It didn't fit anything like that. So it may have had the technology to make us feel like that, but I don't know. I think it was just the silence. It was the unknown. You see something like that, you think this should be making a noise. It's not making a noise. And it was just a complete and utter disbelief as to what you were seeing. Completely baffled us. I mean, I know we want to talk more about the paranormal, but I find this subject completely fascinating, and I think you're completely right. We don't know, what's up in the sky and whether it is, a UAP they call them now, don't they? Yep.
But I was listening to something last night, funnily enough, about a 2022 Congress in America, where they were actually admitting, there's lots of whistleblowers now and lots of people that are coming forward that have been, and all of them, to say that aliens exist. That's an absolute reality. We're aliens to some beings. We're no different, are we? And that they've been here forever. For literally forever,
I would argue that they're here now.
Yes.
They just operate on different frequencies.
Absolutely.
Which is where it comes into the tying all of this stuff together.
Yeah. And the cryptozoology.
My main research always was UFOs.
Yeah.
If you ask, you talk about, I know exactly that. I know the people that were involved.
Yes.
If you say, when was Roswell, I can tell you all of these dates, all these. It's weird because the ghost stuff never really. I was never that bothered. Like, people say, have you heard of this medium? Have you watched this? Absolutely not. No interest in it whatsoever. The UFOs was always more of an interest.
Yeah.
But by some weird way, I've ended up going down the paranormal route, like the ghost route.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And even to this day, when I'm kind of we've just released a new paranormal documentary. People saying, well, why aren't you doing it on UFOs? I don't know. I don't know. I just keep feeling compelled to kind of go down this route.
Yeah.
So I think within the UFO world, there are a lot of gatekeepers. There's a lot of misinformation. We talk about that thing that happened in 2022. It happens every year, right? And the problem is it's a circus, and all it does is it keeps people occupied looking, they're going to disclose. It's like, I don't need a group of people to tell me that aliens exist, right? Like, I know that, I believe that. That, to me, that's just a charade, and it's something to keep everybody's eyes over there whilst other stuff is going on over here. And so I don't buy too much into any of that. No. And that's the same in the paranormal. I don't really watch these TV shows. I don't watch these kind of entertainers, as I call them, and these money makers. I've got no interest in that. I've had my own experiences. I have my own beliefs, my own theories, and the longer I've done this, like well over a decade now, that's what's important. I don't need to prove to anyone that ghosts exist.
Yeah.
I know they do. I believe they do.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all that matters.
Let's talk about that then. Have you got some stories you can tell us? Yes. Or how do you know they exist?
Well, I guess we need to go right to the core of this and say, what is a ghost, right?
Yeah.
So, when you go on these ghost hunts, you go with these big groups and you go into these locations and you spend 5 or 6 hours using all this equipment. There's this avid belief that a ghost is a dead person. That's the core belief of everybody, right? But is it? And this is the thing. I got very bored very quickly going on these kind of investigations because they were using the same equipment. They were asking the same questions, and even now to this day they're still doing the same thing.
Is anybody there?
Is anybody there? And if there is, they're always there to hurt you.
Yeah,
it's always a demon, right? You never hear about a friendly ghost that helps you put the bins out on a Thursday night, right?
Casper.
You never hear of that. It's always evil because that's what these shows tell you. That's what these movies tell you, that all ghosts are demons.
They do. I've got to say this because it's just popped into my head and I'll burst out laughing if I don't. Do you know that program, Haunted or whatever it was, with David? Is it David? What's his name? Or Cora?
Most Haunted, Derek Acora.
Derek Acora. What's that one where he's
Mary
loves Dick. Mary loves Dick.
They'd massively set him up for that.
Did they?
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I don't know whether Derek Acora was real or not.
Really?
I think he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
But they really treated him badly. And there's a lot of stuff out there now that you can find and back behind the scene footage and stuff.
Yeah.
They really treated him badly. But yeah. But anyway, yeah. So the core question you have to ask yourself is, what is a ghost? Now, to me, the activity that you might have in a house or whatever, it's energy, and we are all energy. We're all vibrational energy, vibrating to a particular frequency, and this is where when I started looking into this and someone said, we should go and write a book or whatever, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to write it on? So at that time, I was starting to look into the nature of reality, and I was starting to look into what is this world that we live in. And I was a big follower of the likes of David Icke and people like this. So and he was big into the nature of reality. And one of the things that really stuck with me was that we can only perceive 0.05% of the light spectrum, which we call visible light. And obviously, just outside that, you have infrared, ultraviolet, and stuff like that. So if you were to shine an ultraviolet torch in here now, you would see lots of stuff that you can't see with your eye. But of course, it's still there. We're just not perceiving it.
Yeah.
So that got me to thinking, well, what exists in this world? So that means in the room we're in now, 99.95% of this room we can't interact with. We can't see, we can't perceive. So what's actually here now? What's vibrating on these frequencies that we can't interact with? The reason we can't interact with them is because we're trapped in this biological vessel that keeps us trapped within a five sense reality. Touch, taste, feel. So once we die, which every biological thing does, once we wither and die, this energy, people call it a soul, people call it a spirit, whatever, this energy needs to go somewhere. And as Einstein said, you can't destroy energy, you can only displace it. So where does this energy go? So I believe what happens then is this energy is then able to vibrate on all of these frequencies. It can go where it wants. And the longer I've looked into this, the more I believe that actually what it does is it rejoins what I've called the collective consciousness, which is this everything there ever was, is, and will be. And that we are all tuned into this collective consciousness. Kind of like, imagine the cloud, if you want to look at like a modern day technology. And we pull our thoughts from there, and we pull our memories from there, and we pull our ideas from there. So when you then think about energy and you experience a haunting and you see a ghost, people say, well, it was my mum because it looked like my mum and it spoke like my mum and it knew my name like my mum would. And I say, but of course it did, because it was from the collective consciousness, and it's everything there ever was, is, and will be. So of course it was your mum. So all you're doing is you're tuning into a point of attention, and you're seeing what you want to see, which is your mum. That's in your subconscious what you want to see. So you're materializing your mum there, and she's telling you what you want to hear. That's not to say that it's not happening. It 100% is happening to that person. That's what they're perceiving. But it doesn't mean that they're seeing a dead person. I think they're just seeing a point of energy that is manifesting itself as one of their memories or one of their wants and needs. So when you think that you kind of bouncing around here, but when you think about people see a UFO and it just disappears, they see a ghost who just walks through a wall, or they see a Bigfoot that walks behind a tree but he doesn't come out the other side. I would argue that he does come out the other side, and the UFO hasn't disappeared, it's still there. But I always use the analogy of a car radio. So when you're listening to a car radio, sometimes it messes up and two radio stations play at the same time, and then it fixes itself. That's what's happening. So our brain is a radio, and it's tuning into all of these points of attention. So this is vibrating to a particular frequency, and therefore I can see it, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm not looking at it, it doesn't exist until I tune into it. If we logged onto Facebook on your laptop and Facebook on my laptop, we're both tuning into the same, therefore we're both seeing the same thing. That's what's happening here. But some people are colourblind, right? So you'd see a grey car, I would see a green car. Doesn't mean you're wrong, but in your level of perception, it's grey or green.
Yeah.
So when we're tuning into the world, that's how we're seeing all this. When we see a ghost or a Bigfoot or a UFO, those radio stations are mixing up, the frequencies are mixing up, and for a brief second, we're listening to two radio stations at the same time. And then it fixes itself, and he doesn't come out the other side of the tree. Or the UFO disappears. But what's happened is your frequencies have just corrected themselves and gone, oh, no, you shouldn't be seeing that. And therefore, you don't see it anymore. But it's still there. You just can't tune into it.
Exactly.
So when you have mediums and psychics, these guys can listen to two radio stations at once. They've got a DAB radio. They can listen to all these stations. And I think that's what's happening. And I think we all have that ability. It's just kind of been tuned out of us, and we're told that that invisible friend is silly, and you should have invisible friends and all that kind of stuff. So we're conditioned to believe that ghosts and stuff aren't real. So to go back to your original, what is a ghost? That is the core question. Because if people continue to believe they're just dead people, then we will never progress. When you start to ask these different types of questions and look at it from different angles about what it could possibly be, that opens up a whole world of possibilities. And I always say to someone, you know, that barn in the middle of a field that's haunted, apparently, right? Why would it be? Why would a ghost choose to stand in a barn hoping that someone every 10 years goes in so he can jump out and say boo? Because if I died and they said, what do you want to do? I would not say I want to stand in a barn in the middle of a field waiting to jump out on someone every 10 years, right? It's not what I would do.
No.
So when you think about that, all of a sudden, a ghost being a dead person is quite silly. And there's so many more possibilities as to what a ghost could be.
Yeah.
So we've discussed the energy. We've discussed how we focus our attention onto it. But then comes a little bit further down the rabbit hole where you start to think, well, but does that mean that they're creating that haunting themselves? You know, are they manifesting this themselves? How many hauntings happen to people that are grieving, that are depressed? I mean, I've seen them myself in houses where children are autistic or children are going through puberty or all that kind of stuff, is when this activity tends to happen. It never happens in a happy family home, ever. Like, someone's going to watch this and go, I've got an example of that, fine, send it to me, right? Well, I bet I can find something that was going on at the time that would link to why the haunting was happening. And I'm not dismissing that people often say, oh, you're a true skeptic, you really don't believe. I do believe. But I believe I'm looking at it from a different angle. You know, I'm not denying people's experiences because it's all personal. It's all what they're perceiving at the time. I've been in an investigation where I've stood next to someone and they've said, can you not see this? It's there. Look at that. And I'm like, I can't see a thing. It doesn't mean they're lying. Maybe they're just tuning into that radio station and I'm not.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? Because you hear, even with UFOs, some people have seen them and other people on the same street haven't.
Yep. And they've been looking.
Yes, because the people are tuning in.
People are tuning in.
So if we go with the theory that everything is happening all at the same time, past, present, future, everything else, do you think then, a bit like the analogy you use when you shine the ultraviolet light, that we are literally just tapping into different frequencies?
100%. So I use the analogy of a block of flats. So we're here on one level. You've got the aliens are above you. You've got Bigfoot knocking around on the top floor. And you know they're there because occasionally you hear them playing the music or they scrape the furniture around. You might even pass one as you're going into the lift. Yeah. But ultimately you can't interact with each other because you're all on different levels. Yeah. And I think what happens is when we die and our consciousness is free, or if you're a medium or a psychic, you have the ability to get onto these different floors of this block of flats, and that's where we're all operating. And obviously that block of flats is the world, and we're all here now. So there's a massive argument in ufology. Are they nuts and bolt craft who have flown light years to crash in Roswell? You know, they've come all this way, but they just can't get through Roswell without crashing.
Exactly, I've always
or they've come all this way to abduct some redneck from Texas and stick a probe up his ass. None of that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I'm not denying that that's possible. These theories can live side by side. But for me, it makes more sense that they're actually interdimensional, not interplanetary, and therefore they're existing here with us, just outside of our perceptive range. Yeah. And to go further, you could argue that people that control the world, that know this, that know how perception works, how much easier is it to control someone when you know what they can and can't see?
Definitely resonate.
But that's a completely different conversation.
It is, and we'll have you back for that one because that just makes me very excited. That one does. That's her arm waving around, you know. Yeah. I mean, I just love all of this, and it makes me think of autistic children. Mm-hmm. I've been listening to a few documentaries on autistic children recently, and one of them was it just blew my mind. And it was there were children that weren't verbalising.
Telepathy tapes.
Yes, but yes, exactly. It's mind blowing, isn't it? I'll let you explain. The telepathy tapes.
It's fantastic.
Telepathy tapes.
It's difficult to say, yeah. But it's this podcast that was done about autistic children. They're non-verbal, as in the whole. Some of them can talk, but not very well. But they can all communicate with each other, and they can also read the minds of non-autistic people, so they know what we'd be thinking and stuff. they did experiments where they were holding an iPad and they would write something and that person would know what they've written because essentially they're seeing through the eyes of that person. It's very Stranger Things in a way.
It makes me go goosey.
It's
one
bizarre.
kid that was using his mum's eyes.
He was using his mum's eyes,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's it's the one I'm thinking of. He was his mum was downstairs watching a film. He was upstairs in his room, and she said, "Come down and watch the film." And he said, "I don't need to. I don't want to." And then he basically told her over the phone, "But this is what you're watching. That man's just had his leg blown off or something like that in the film. So I am seeing the film. I just don't need to come downstairs."
But doesn't that prove your theory slightly?
Yeah, exactly.
About
the
frequencies.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And so there's been a theory floated around: are autistic people actually autistic, or are they the next step in our evolution? Yeah. So so you look at the typical grey alien. They're small. They have no muscles because they don't need to work because they've got technology that can do all the lifting for them. They have small mouths because they don't need to talk because they can communicate telepathically. They have big heads because they're cleverer. Their brains have grown. They have no sexual organs because they don't need to mate. They use laboratories and stuff like that. So they're basically just us in the future. So
sounds pretty sad because there's no sex.
It is. Well,
I wasn't going to say that though.
Sorry,
I was thinking.
Can you remember what was that film, Demolition Man, where Sylvester Stallone go to have sex by putting on a hat?
Yeah, I remember.
But people say that autistic children, or autistic people, are that kind of the link between us and them, and it's just the next. It's us evolving basically.
Yeah.
And I think there could be something to that. But yeah, with the telepathy tapes, the biggest thing I found fascinating with that was how it was called The Hill, or there was something about The Hill.
Yeah.
where they could basically go and lie down in a quiet place and they all telepathically, spiritually meet on a hill. And this one child, the mom said, "How many were there today?" And he said, "There was a few hundred of us there today." And they're all just kind of mingling in this spiritual place. Could that be the collective consciousness? I don't know. But they're all mingling there. And that's where they go and socialise, like their version of a nightclub.
Which it just makes me tingle all over. I just think it is beautiful. I mean, I have an autistic nephew. He's not non-verbal at all. He goes to school and he's different. But he struggles so much to be in his body.
Yep.
Because they're not... that's the integration, isn't it, with that mind and that kind of 3D body that's just not working for them. And so he verbalizes that by dressing up, by being other people. And I remember when he was really young, you'd go to 6, 7, 8, he started this, you'd go and see him and he'd say, "Auntie Paula, you be me and I'll be you. And you go home with my mum and dad and I'll stay here," because he just... and still can't reconcile.
Well, he's trapped, isn't he?
He is trapped.
He obviously has this ability to do all of this stuff, like these children we were speaking about.
Yeah.
So to be trapped within this really boring, mundane, I can imagine, and I think that's a thing with depression. Like, that's something I've suffered from.
Yeah.
And for me, my main depression comes from the mundane, right? Why do I have to get up every day and go and do a job that ultimately I don't really want? I wouldn't choose to do it. I didn't choose. It's not when I said at school, "What do you want to be?" It wasn't that. Go and do this job, pay my bills, live out, and then sit at home watching crappy TV. That's not what I want to do, right? And 90% of the world are doing stuff they don't want to do. And the problem is, if you understand what life really is and what we are as beings and what the possibilities. And where I believe we go when this game is over, and where I've come from, like, this is just so boring.
I know.
So maybe we need to tap into more of those different layers to expand ourselves and enjoy life more.
But you can't, because you've got bills to pay. You've got to keep a roof over your head.
True, there's a balance.
So they've got you trapped, and that's what I said earlier about the people at the top know how to control this, then you're screwed. And to truly step outside of the matrix is fantastic. You've got to stop paying your bills.
Yeah.
But you'd quickly be in a shop doorway.
Yeah.
And this is it, isn't it? Do you know, I watched The Matrix the other day for the first time in 20 years. After watching it, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
After watching it again, knowing what we know and seeing how we've evolved as humanity over the last 20 years, it's like... Really?
Yep.
It's, you know, and do you know what? I'm a question to both of you here, because everyone goes, I'd take the red pill, you know, but actually, would you? This is the real reality. Would you live on that ship and go back and fight everything, you know, plugged in?
Well, what's the name of the character? The bad guy who begins with an S.
I can't remember.
He's basically a bad guy who ends up shopping them in.
Oh,
but there's that scene where he's eating
yeah.
the steak and he's like, I know this isn't a steak. I know this is fake, but I just love the taste of this steak, right? So there are people like that. They know, and I vary from day to day, but I often say there's like 3 or 4 different types of people. There's the people that are completely oblivious, right? They follow their sports team. They watch Britain's Got Talent.
They wore a mask.
They work their jobs.
Yeah.
They wear their mask.
Yeah.
They do all this stuff, and they're just completely oblivious,
Yeah.
right? I don't blame them, right?
No.
They don't know any different. Then there are the people that know, and they know there's something, but they continue to play the game, right?
Yeah.
So that they're kind of on the fence. So you got the first people, they don't know they're in prison. They can't even see the bars. The next people, they know they're in prison, but what are you going to do, right? And then you've got the people that know they're in prison and they're up at the gate, they're banging, they want to get out. They've had enough. These people that you see on these protests, they think protests are actually going to make a difference.
Yeah.
These are these kind of people, right? And then you've got the fourth person, which I think is where I am now, where you know you're in prison, you know you can't really do anything about it at the moment, so you're just going to make it as comfortable as possible. So you get an Xbox in there, you get a nice comfy settee, and you make the most of it, right? So I know people who are like, you can't watch sports. Sports just entertainment. It's there to dumb you down. It's there to distract you. It's like, absolutely not. I can know what sport is, and I know that's what it is, but I can still bloody enjoy it, and I do enjoy it, right? But I'm also aware of everything else that's going on. So there's this kind of evolution.
There is,
essentially.
and that's it, isn't it? And that's where I've got to, because I think, okay, so 20 years ago I'd have taken the red pill. Now, I sat there and had a debate with
You might
with
not
Donna
take it, but you know it's there.
But I know it's there, and then I thought, okay, so actually, if this is just a simulation and I can create my own reality, why do I just not stay here and create the best reality that I can possibly create, rather than living on some ship, being someone trying to kill me all the time?
That's exactly right.
You know, and that's the truth of it.
We're so going away from ghosts, but if you,
I know we are. It always happens. Another podcast.
If you
come
think
back.
about like the truth, what is known as the truth or industrial complex, right? So you have these grifters, these people that have like no disrespect here, but they have these kind of podcasts and all this kind of stuff, and they make money off it, and they're telling you that there's conspiracies left, right, and centre, right? Which there is. But to me, they're just as bad as the mainstream media. So they're saying, the mainstream media is full of fear. They're trying to scare you all the time. But so are you, because you're telling me that the mainstream media are out to get me. That I'm that. The latest one was that all these immigrants coming into the country are going to cut children's heads off at school and all this kind of stuff. It's like you're spreading just as much fear and hate as the mainstream media, right? So you're just as bad. So for me, when we talk about this kind of evolution and knowing where to be, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are still kind of stuck here, and they need to get out of that. They need to realise what that is. So going on protest, you're trying to defeat the system by playing within the system's constraints, and you're never going to do that. 1.5 million people protested the Iraq War. Millions of people were still killed, right? What was it the other day? 3 million people signed a thing about digital ID. They just came out and went, well, we're going to do it anyway. So that obviously isn't working. So just don't comply. It's the only thing you can do. Just simple, peaceful non-compliance. Because if you start protesting, you start fighting, you start getting violent, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Just peaceful non-compliance. Just don't play the game. So like you say, just be comfortable, right? But people aren't, and people are kind of fighting and rallying, and that's just not the way to be. And to kind of very tenuously link this back to ghosts, that's where I got. That's where I got. I was sick of all there was politics, there was fighting with these big paranormal groups. There's a lot of grifting, there's a lot of money making, they're in it just for the money. And I just thought, I can't be doing with any of that, right? I'm just going to go on my own little journey. And so we made that documentary about that haunting in Essex, that family home, which was phenomenal. And then we just made this new documentary where we followed a few teams around and on location, and we asked them questions and why are you doing this, what equipment are you using, all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of gone my own way, because the more I've done it, the more I've realised it's just it's a personal journey. And like I said, I don't need to prove to anyone that ghosts exist. I've had my own experiences.
Yeah.
But why should I spend my life fighting that? If we're going to go back to kind of the conspiracy side of things, I don't need to keep fighting to that person who wears a mask. Carry on, man. That's your choice now, right? You vibrate on a completely different frequency to me. You crack on. I don't need to convince them anymore. Why should I? What a waste of time and energy, right? Just let them carry on.
Yeah.
Because the problem is you're then becoming just as bad as them, and you might think that you're fighting it, but actually you're just buying into the same energy. So you talk about creating your own reality. So when they put the news out there, they plant a seed and say, oh, there's a new virus, right? If everybody shits themselves and starts panicking and goes out and buys toilet paper and pasta and all that kind of, they're creating that reality themselves, right? They are creating it. They're making it happen. If they just go, no, I'm not going to believe that today, and turn the telly off, they hold no power over you. You just carry on living your own life. The problem is the vast majority of people let them have power over them. And it's the same in the paranormal. I'm not going to convince that person who doesn't believe, because I'm wasting my time. If he just doesn't believe, I could show him the best piece of evidence ever and he'll say it's Photoshop, it's CGI, it's fake. So what's the point? Or I could go to someone who already believes and say, look at this. And they go, yeah, I know. I already believe. You don't need to convince me. So you're wasting your time either way. So for me, it's just, if I get evidence, brilliant, but it's more about just experiences. And I can go to bed at night thinking, I experienced that today, or I saw that and I heard that. That was brilliant. And I don't need to convince anyone. That's my own little journey. And from the conspiratorial side and from the paranormal side, that's kind of where I've got to now.
You go. No, you go. I'm trying to put the phone down. You've got a couple of books out then.
Yeah. So if you go onto Amazon and just search my name, Kieran Woodhouse, you'll find a couple of books.
Yeah.
Or you can just contact me directly.
Yeah. Well, we can put all that in the...
Yeah. I can give you like my email address and stuff.
Yeah.
And some people prefer to buy from me because I don't want to buy from Amazon, which is fine. I get that.
Yeah.
And then if you go onto YouTube and search for Soul Paradigm, you'll come across my channel where my documentaries are and stuff. And you'll be able to, again, if you put my name in, you'll find loads of podcasts and interviews that I've done over the years.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you working on?
What's next? So I've got a couple of talks for the rest of the year. I'm down in Essex doing a talk in November, which I'm looking forward to. I've got an idea of so my first book was an introduction to paranormal investigation. That was me trying to show everyone that ghost hunting isn't what you see on TV. It was just taking people back to basics. The next book was called Experiences of a Paranormal Investigator. Right, so you've got your equipment, you know, you kind of know what you're doing. Now you begin to experience stuff. Let's talk about that. Let's try and break that down. And then I think my next book is going to be Theories of a Paranormal Investigator. Right, so you've had your experiences. What could it be? So let's break it down into. So there's this kind of natural progression of the books being written. That's taking time. Like it's just full-time job, family, hobbies and all that kind of stuff. It takes a massive backseat. But I have got an idea for my next kind of documentary. I would love, again, it's about the people, and I would love to go to different counties in the country, sit in a pub, by a fire, with a pint, and have 3 or 4 locals come in and tell me about their local folklore, their local ghosts,
I love that.
their local ghost
That's
stories.
great.
And that's what it would be. Each episode, you'd have a Shropshire episode, you'd have a Hereford episode, and each one would be 3 or 4 people in a pub telling me about the local village ghosts.
Yeah.
Which
Great.
I think would be really good.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, wow.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Kieran,
Thank you.